So I took a break from YouTube during January. I won't tell you why, both for video flow and for personal reasons, but things are a lot better now, because during my break, I decided to do a few things I didn't have time for previously. Or more realistically, things I had quite a bit of time for, but kept telling myself I'd do tomorrow. Among other useful and boring things like volunteering, cooking, and finding a new place to live, I decided to finish my first playthrough of the Mass Effect Trilogy. And oh my god, what an experience. Even going into the series with some pretty foreboding spoilers on certain plot points, BioWare created such an emotional and enjoyable adventure that it's lived firmly in my head, rent-free, ever since. One of the coolest things about the game is how many choices are taken into consideration for certain decisions. Importing saves throughout a game series is nothing new, and neither is the concept of imported saves altering the game and/or the story. But the Mass Effect Trilogy probably does it better than any other AAA game out there, and it makes repeated playthroughs both extremely enjoyable and personally unique. So when I finished the game and went down my YouTube video essay rabbit hole that genuinely motivated me to complete the series because there's just so much good content out there for it, I started seeing a bunch of playthroughs and choices and scenarios that were completely different than those offered to me during my playthrough. And that led me down another rabbit hole of researching and scheming. Nefariously. So today, I'm here to showcase to you the fruits of those labors, the worst Mass Effect playthrough possible. Sorta. Some choices are obviously extremely subjective, but all the posts and videos I've seen where people discuss a premise like this usually just turn out to be a route where you kill everybody ASAP, which, don't get me wrong, is really sad and leads to very depressing plot points, but there are a lot of choices where showing just a little bit of restraint or maybe even subtlety will lead to an even worse outcome or fate for a character later on. Also, I blurred out the last two scenes, but I'm going to state this outright. This video will contain huge, massive spoilers for the entire trilogy, as we're really aiming for a domino effect here. So I can't really discuss why I'm choosing an option without mentioning or implying potential implications that may occur in the future. If you're somebody who hasn't played the Mass Effect Trilogy, or somebody who hasn't even finished it, I would highly advise doing your own playthrough before watching this video. So, first we have to start with character creation. For the class, I'm going to be picking the Engineer. Not because I think it's the worst or can even make a solid case on why I think it's the worst class. Hell, it's actually what I rolled with on my first playthrough, and I had a really great time. Especially by the time I got to the third game and really spec'd into area denial with combat drones and auto turrets and other neat powers. However, it's the class that's picked by far the least by a pretty insane margin, so I feel like it's only fitting. The rest of the choices for Shepard don't really matter all too much. Hell, to be fair, the class didn't either, but there's a few other min-maxy things that we can pull off here. So pre-service, we're going to roll with Earthborn. Spacer is a bit too happy and has a lot of really cute scenes later on, which is something we don't care for here. But Earthborn and Colonist both have more tragic implications. The Colonist had their family and friends slaughtered, and they have a mission where you can talk to another survivor of a massacre in a really tense situation. And as shitty as all of that is, I think Earthborn is just a little bit more tragic. Obviously, the events of Mass Effect 3 will be even more upsetting. However, in their exclusive mission, you also get to free a human from your old gang that you used to ride with back on Earth, who just you know, kinda casually attempted to poison Turian medical cargo, which could have potentially caused the death of millions. Just a little prank, you know? Yeah, and you can just go ahead and set him free. Yeah. Psychological profile realistically matters the least out of any of the choices. We're not going to be rolling War Hero for obvious reasons, but I think Ruthless overall makes the most sense. Plus the extra Renegade boost may be nice to have at some point. So we're going Ruthless. Now for Shepard's gender. So in Mass Effect, the only real difference between male and female Shepard is in their potential relationships. There's some differences other than that, sure, but they're mostly just fluff and flavor. So with that in mind, I think overall, I plotted a slightly worse relationship course for female Shepard over male Shepard. You'll see it in action over the course of the trilogy, so I constructed my Shepard to be as intimidating as they come. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, look at those cheekbones. They're like goddamn tusks. Give it enough time and she's going to be ramming into people with them as a lethal melee weapon. Alrighty, so with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and begin the run. Hey, future me breaking video flow here. There's no sponsor today, but I got a bunch of custom-made shirts for this video that I think are pretty neat. If this or any of these other neat designs on screen happen to intrigue you, feel free to check them out at daveygun.place. That's it, see ya, bye. First things first, we have to power level Jenkins. This is a prerequisite for the hidden Jenkins ending in Mass Effect 3, where he jumps into the beam for the Synthesis ending while commanding Marauder shields to fire off the Destroy ending, proccing the elusive Yellow ending where all life in the universe becomes synthetic before being annihilated indiscriminately seconds later. Nah, in all seriousness, I just wanted to preface this by saying that I'm using a few gameplay altering mods, but nothing to the extent of the Jenkins AU that I just described. Mostly just conveniences like minigame skips and higher sprint duration. Nothing game breaking or even really game altering. Well, except for this. I guess Engineer gets kind of insane in 2 and 3 as well, but you get the idea. Starting off, there's nothing really all too special to note on Eden Prime. You can be a massive asshole to everyone, including Ashley, and state that you don't want her on your squad, but unfortunately she's here to stay, and your actions have very little consequences here. Once we get to the Citadel, though, this is where the game really starts to diverge into utter nonsense. Kinda, sorta, I'm gonna be honest, the first Mass Effect is mostly just setting up the dominoes. You won't really be seeing any dominoes tip over just yet, but boy will we be setting up some dominoes. So let's talk about companions. Right now we have Kaidan and Ashley on board, but there's 4 more that we can recruit throughout the game. Anderson gives you no choice and you do have to recruit Tali before you leave the Citadel, and you do eventually have to recruit Liara before the end of the game, but Garrus and Wrex are actually both optional. You can really tell the developers are pushing you towards recruiting them, but if you want, you can beat the entire game without them. Garrus will show up and will be a required pickup for Mass Effect 2, but if you ignore Wrex, you actually won't see him throughout the rest of the trilogy, with only brief mentions of his existence being sprinkled into a few dialogue choices. However, for the worst possible outcome, we're going to be recruiting Wrex, but declining Garrus' permission to join the crew. We'll talk about why we're doing this later, but keep this in the back of your mind. Now let's talk about side quests. There's a few in particular you can utterly and royally fuck up, but unless it's something really impactful, I'm not going to mention it. The one thing worth noting here is that we seeked out the man, the myth, the legend Conrad Werner, then promptly told him to fuck off because we're in the middle of some serious business. Then we went ahead and got Wrex, killed the actual hell out of Fist, became the first human Spectre, and now we're given a choice on which planet we want to go to first. So to get into a flowchart of this game's mission route, you have to choose between Therum, Noveria, or Pharos, then afterwards you have to choose another one of those three, then after that planet you gain access to Virmire. However, in order to proceed to the next planet after Virmire, you have to complete all three of the initial planets that were offered to you. So for now, we're going to start with Theros as it's by far the easiest to explain on a fundamental level. So the plot here is that this area is getting absolutely blasted by Geth, so as to badass Commander Shepard, who is now a Spectre by the way, it's our job to save the colony and the colonists. No. So, basically the way Pharos works out in the end is on a point system. In order to assure the survival of the colony, you need to accumulate 13 points. How can you acquire these elusive points, you may ask? So, once you return from Geth shenaniganizing, the colonists are going to be mind-controlled, and you have the option to just blast them away a la Team Rocket, or spare them with a special type of grenade.
Please try to avoid hurting the colonists. Use the nerve.
So every colonist that you spare will add 1 point to a counter. Also, if you did any of the side quests that were available, each one of those completed will add another point to the counter. Then there's the colony leadership. If you don't kill Shiala after the gauntlet battle with the Thorian, she'll add 5 points. If you spared Ethan in the confrontation before this with a skill check of 10 Intimidate or 12 Charm, that'll skyrocket you up to 12 points. So as you can probably tell with the mystical power of 2nd grade math, the requirement of 13 is not difficult by any stretch of the imagination. It's stupidly easy to get more than 20, and it's even possible to go above 30. However, our Shepard is not an exceptionally smart woman. I mean, if we're being honest, she definitely faked her engineering degree. She doesn't even know how to count. Hell, she struggles to read a lot of the time. From what I can gather, she just hopes that if she says enough witty one-liners and throws out some gadgety nonsense from time to time, that people will believe her claim. So, with this daunting task before her, she miraculously managed to get a final point tally of 0. Yeah, she just fucking killed everyone and didn't do any side quests, because honestly, those are for nerds who don't lift. I eat coal for breakfast every day, and if you can't handle my dedication and sheer willpower, it's better off that you stay out of my way, idiot. We did it, Council. We saved the city. Now let's go find some more people to save.
Status. Sensors reveal 3 fusion torches propelling asteroid X-57. At its current rate of acceleration, the asteroid will collide with Terra Nova in approximately 4 hours.
Shut down the fusion torches. I'm going to die.
This sounds like a job for me. Yeah, honestly, this one is kinda funny. So if you don't know, in Mass Effect 2, there's a similar DLC to this one called Arrival. And there's a point in that DLC where a timer begins to count down. It's not a very strict timer by any stretch of the imagination, But if you decide to wait it out for comic antics, this happens. Yeah, pretty funny all things considered. But, like I said, this DLC has a similar premise. The Batarians, once again justifying their rampant xenophobia against them, decided to take on some mercenary work to throw a giant fucking asteroid towards a bunch of humans. And it's our job as the heroic Commander Shepard to save them. So in order to save them, we have to disable 3 torches. However, there's a problem. Commander Shepard, as I previously mentioned, cannot count. So although she was tasked with defusing 3 torches, she destroyed 2 and returned back onto the Normandy after a job well done. We did it, Anderson. We saved the cities. Yeah, for whatever reason, whether it be a technical limitation or an oversight, BioWare didn't account for this happening. If we're being completely blunt, this may have just been a good diversion from a sheerly analytical perspective because we did kill off quite a few Batarians. But I just really find the concept of Shepard casually leaving millions to die because they got bored really funny. So I went ahead and did it anyways. Up next, politics. So we're going to go ahead and head to Noveria to continue with the main story. If I'm being completely honest, this initial segment is one of my least favorite in all of the trilogy, and although there are genuinely intriguing results that can be earned if you're a big enough asshole to everyone, I genuinely just don't think it's worth going in depth with. It's just Shepard being a manipulative asshole until everyone either dies, gives us LODS of EMONE, is extremely inconvenienced, or miraculously all of the above. So to skip ahead,
I need to get my blood flowing. Find me something to kill.
Rachni Queen. Again, this choice won't matter until Mass Effect 3, but we're going to go ahead and kill her in an extremely depressing cutscene.
This time, stay dead.
Well, I would consider this a huge success. We did it, Council. We saved... I think we saved...
Commander, you are addressing a member of the Council. You will show the proper respect.
Whoops.
And we're out.
Well, that didn't go as planned. You know what, let's go see our buddy Conrad.
Hey,
I'm sure that's
Shepard,
gonna
it's
cheer
me,
us up.
Conrad Werner. Remember me? You were too busy to talk last time, but that's not a problem. I know you're busy being the first human Spectre and all.
I don't have time for this crap. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of.
So that's how it is? The rest of us should just let you reap the fame and glory? Well, you're not the only one who can stand up for humanity. I'll show you.
CSEC has declined to press charges in the death of human Conrad Werner, who was killed yesterday morning after assaulting a group of Turians in a restaurant in the wards. Khalisa Al-Jilani recently attempted to land an interview with Commander Shepard, the first human Spectre. When pressed on the issues, however, Commander Shepard reportedly lost control and assaulted the reporter.
You Quarians messed up the whole galaxy.
You know, sometimes you just do everything right in a difficult scenario. Sometimes you manage to pull off the impossible and persevere in the face of the odds, yet things just may not go well. It's unfair, but that feeling of sadness, of remorse, regret that stems from those moments of heart-wrenching defeat is what makes us human. The lesson you should take forward isn't what we could have done differently, but rather what we've learned from our hardships and how we can remain hopeful for a brighter tomorrow.
If you can't give me a better reason than this to destroy the hopes of my people, then I'm done with you.
Fuck. Yeah, so it's about time we discuss the companion route. So as you probably know, our dino pal Wrex here isn't all too pleased with our decision to destroy Saren's base, and we have a few options here to calm him down, including, but not limited to, gunning him down in a grossly violent and depressing scene,
Commander, are you alright?
I'm feeling a hell of a lot better than he is.
or alternatively, we can signal our iconic and beloved squad mate Ashley to shoot Wrex instead. Or alternatively, if you spend too long talking to him with no progress being made, Ashley will shoot him regardless of your actions or input. So no matter what, Wrex will die here unless you can secure one of the following options. If you have a high enough Intimidate or Charm skill, you can persuade Wrex that destroying the facility is the best option and that keeping it intact will only hurt the Krogans more. Or alternatively, if you did Wrex's side quest to obtain his family's armor, which is obviously deeply personal to him, that'll convince him to stand down even if you don't have a high Charm or Intimidate skill. However, there's actually a secret option that you can utilize that a lot of people don't know about, and for good reason. So in this mission you have to make a choice early on whether or not to send Ashley or Kaidan to help out the Solarians. But once you've gotten through a significant chunk of the base, whoever you didn't select will stand back to defend the bomb that will destroy the base. So at that point your party is limited to Garrus, Liara, Wrex, and Tali. Tali will be here no matter what as she's required, but we haven't rescued Liara yet. And we denied Garrus permission to join our crew, and Wrex is... well, he's here. So I'm guessing BioWare didn't want to make Garrus or Liara a required pickup before Virmire, because if you talk to Wrex and you only have the other 3 mandatory party members, he just stands down. Automatically.
All you need to know is that I'm giving you an order to fall in line.
So that's it. All this time, and that's all I get from you. Well, it's your decision, Commander. Go on then. Don't let me get in your way.
If I had to assume, I'd guess BioWare didn't want you to be down a party member for this section here, since you'd obviously only have Tali available if Wrex was dead. But it's still just a really bizarre outcome, and I'd honestly figure the better solution would be to make Liara mandatory for this mission. I mean, hell, 2 party members weren't particularly needed here. Like, just look at this. Overkill is a fair and balanced ability, I promise. Anyways, other than Wrex's very sudden and bizarre character 180 here, we went ahead and caused Kirahi to die by not helping his assault. If you don't sabotage the Geth positions, he'll die to the Geth just before you reach Saren's base, and whoever you send to help with this team will assume direct control of the operation. And just like most things in the first Mass Effect, this will only really matter later on in the trilogy. Also, in regards to the Virmire choice where we have to sacrifice either Kaidan or Ashley, we're going to be sacrificing Ashley. Of course, Ashley is a lovable and iconic character that everyone in the Mass Effect community loves dearly and is objectively the incorrect choice here. But as a female Shepard, I want to fuck Kaidan, because he hasn't really come out of the closet yet. And our only other option in Mass Effect 1 is Liara, and... oh, yeah, Liara. So she does have a bunch of unique dialogue if you delay recruiting her, figuring you must be a figment of her imagination since she's been here for so long. But other than this, everything else is pretty much the same. But, yeah. It's romance time. Truthfully, the relationship route with Caden and Ashley would play out virtually the same exact way in this playthrough, but look, at this point I'm just going to make a sticker real quick. There. If this is ever on screen at the top right, you are now legally obligated to save whatever is on screen in your mental handy-dandy notebook. This will be an important decision for later on in the playthrough. Alrighty? Alrighty. Also, as a fun fact to make this worth your time, so many people wanted to fuck Garrus that it unironically changed the trajectory of the series. Which I think is pretty neat. Anyways, after that, Mass Effect is essentially over. We have a few neat-ish choices before the end, such as telling Captain Anderson he should go through the C-Sec patrol so he gets shot before setting us free, or screwing over an important treaty negotiation with the Solarians by giving the human depressants instead of the stimulants that he requested. But every other choice that truly matters is conveniently located within the last few minutes of the game. So we go to Ilos, do some shenaniganizing, and just before our epic and climactic showdown with Saren, we have to decide the Council's fate, and we're just going to go ahead and let them die. If I'm going to be honest, this is the choice I made in my first playthrough, which I can't really feel too guilty about, since the question is framed in a way that implies that Saren may escape, and or cause even more destruction if we don't focus fire on it. This isn't the case though, and throughout the trilogy, saving the Council ends up being the better option. Even if you have to deal with...
Ah yes, Reapers!
Although one thing I genuinely forgot about was that let the Council die and concentrate on Saren were two different options. They both play out the same way, but let the Council die gets us more bad boy points, so we're going to go with that. So with Sovereign Gonzo and the Council Gonzo, it's about high time we make our own Council. But instead of those stupid aliens with their high and mighty politics and loitering, humanity is going to make its own council, with blackjack and hookers. Yeah, if your renegade score is high enough, you actually finish the game by instating and enforcing an entirely human-led council, which is actually really neat. It'd be even neater if Mass Effect 3 didn't essentially retcon every decision made in the sequence, but what you gonna do? Actually, what I'm going to do is bring this up as a passionate rant because legitimately the fact that none of your choices matter here fucking sucks. Like, the third game is obviously very interconnected with lots of racial politics and history, and the fact that the same story plays out if you're a great guy who saved the Council and did everything right, or an asshole who intentionally let the Council die to usurp control for humanity is insane. And look, I get it. Mass Effect 3 story bad give up votes isn't an unpopular opinion, but usually that stems from Cerberus and the endings. If you think about it, Shepard here does pretty much the same exact shit that Cerberus does in the third game, and we don't even get a slap on the wrist. And you can really tell BioWare had a fuck it we ball attitude towards this, because when you get to Earth with all of the fleets, the Destiny Ascension is still fucking there. And I originally went in depth here because I genuinely think Anderson is a worse choice here, just due to how miserable he is in this position, and how Udina being an extremely persistent asshole isn't strictly a bad thing to be as a politician, but literally who cares? Even when you kill him in 3 in front of all the other council members, the game's like, you know, Shepard, you did let the council die and schemed with this man to organize a human council and seize control, just like the terrorist organization that believes in human supremacy that's currently hunting us at this exact moment, and you did actively work with that terrorist organization, and you did just gun down the guy/gal protecting us from said terrorists, and we're looking at footage of you killing the Solarian Council, and you warned us that Cerberus would be coming up the elevator, which was a lie, and they did just conveniently leave the second you got here. But thank you for saving our lives, we're truly in your... Are you fucking brain damaged? There is absolutely no reason Shepard shouldn't be out of the airlock right now. I see 4 follower Twitter users who primarily engage with disgusting hentai fetish art and batshit insane extremist conspiracy theories that have more political know-how than you. Unironically, this should be a fail state. A nice try, buddy. Try again without being fucking stupid message over a black screen. In fact, this could have been the prerequisites needed for a Conrad Werner route, where Cerberus initiates Project Lazarus 2 with him, and successfully controls the Reapers with the assistance of the biotic god and Blasto. I legitimately would have preferred that. Whatever, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Mass Effect 2. I really like Mass Effect 2. Although, unfortunately, it's going to be a while until we make any really impactful decisions. We can punch a reporter again, and we can get rid of a potential option in Tali's loyalty mission, but in terms of impactful choices, those are all going to be coming in the latter half of the game. For now, though, it's time for the Companion Collectathon. Woohoo. Although I will say Garrus in particular does have a few unique lines of dialogue when we get, what the fuck is that noise? Thank you, Mass Effect 2. Anyways, Garrus does have a few lines of unique dialogue when you get to him, and the mood is overall a lot less celebratory compared to your standard playthrough. But it still plays out pretty much the same exact way. He also has a few unique lines to say if you decide to tank a few shots before assaulting the base.
You nailed me good a couple times, by the way.
Concussive rounds only, no harm done. Didn't want the mercs getting suspicious.
Uh-huh.
If I wanted to do more than take your shields down, I'd have done it. Besides, you were taking your sweet time. I needed to get you moving.
I know it's a really tiny thing and it doesn't add to the video, really, but I just really love tiny little details like this in games, and I thought it was worth mentioning. Anyways, our first real decision comes in the form of Grunt. As you may know, when we get to him, he's stored away in a freezer right next to the Varen roast until we decide to wake him up. We're going to talk about this choice way later on during the suicide mission, but at least for now, we're keeping Grunt in the mommy tube. Anyways, the next talking point is the suicide mission. Look, there's a few noteworthy-ish things, such as killing Karl Rieger, or Kaidan being a little bit more upset at us on Horizon since we banged okay, or getting the exclusive Hackett out of the airlock ending, further proving that the indoctrination theory is canon since he has to be a husk for this to be possible. But it's just not possible to talk about the events of this game without talking about the setup for the perfect suicide mission. So let's go in order of unlockable companions. Jacob and Miranda are both going to die. Jacob is Jacob, he volunteers for the vents. For Miranda though, there's a choice in Mass Effect 3 that has several different outcomes depending on whether or not Miranda lives, whether or not you've completed her loyalty mission, whether or not you've entered a relationship with her, and a few other miscellaneous factors. Fortunately for us though, the very worst outcome is only possible if she dies in a suicide mission, so that simplifies things quite a bit. For both of the DLC companions, Kasumi is going to be cannon fodder as she is absolutely vital in the actual execution of the mission, but we'll discuss that more when we get there. Zaid, however, is actually extremely unique. Obviously, he can die in the suicide mission. However, if you do his loyalty mission after the suicide mission, you can actually just leave him to die a fiery death. As much as I would love to choose that option, unfortunately this only appears if you help the desperate workers trapped within the burning factory. And overall that just sounds a little bit too heroic for us. So we're just going to go ahead and let Zaid die in the normal way. As for Garrus, oddly despite how beloved he is in the community, the only real difference Garrus' death makes in the sequel is the fact that Liara stays in your party when you help the Turians, where normally you would send her back to the Normandy to help out Joker and the crew. A few lines of dialogue are added or changed, sure, but compared to other companions I've mentioned, even the less beloved ones can leave a significantly worse impact overall. Maybe the developers were really afraid of throwing in a potential curveball in so suddenly, but unfortunately there's not a whole lot to miss here, so Garrus is going bye-bye. Grunt is kind of a wild card because I do think him staying alive for Mass Effect 3 makes his appearance much more upsetting, but keeping Grunt inside of the tank is also equally depressing in its own way. And because of one very important encounter when we get to the suicide mission, you can kinda swing this either way. Although oddly, if you do decide to leave him in the tank, the same exact results play out as if he died, which I do think is a missed opportunity to have him show up as a potential enemy in Mass Effect 3. It's not exactly the first time it happens, and I think it's kinda neat, so I'm going to keep him in the tank for my headcanon. A Davey headcanon. Gunface, I got jokes. And then there's Legion, who is probably the easiest verdict thus far. Them being absent in Mass Effect 3 makes the best possible outcome in a main story scenario impossible, makes the worst possible outcome possible, and we'll have a nice surprise waiting for us later on. However, we don't have to figure out how to kill them, as we actually just have an option to just fucking sell them for 50,000 fun bucks. At this point in the playthrough, that's honestly insignificant at best, but sure thing, boss man. I never needed them anyways. For just a scrap heap and a liability, lol. Sure there's going to be no repercussions for doing this. So as you probably may have noticed, I skipped over a few names in particular during that segment. Jack, Mordin, Samara, Tali, and Thane are all characters I believe have worse outcomes available to them in Mass Effect 3. We'll go over them when their time comes, but I do want to talk about Samara specifically real quick. Samara has a loyalty mission where she asks you to help her kill her daughter, Morinth. If your Renegade or Paragon score is high enough, you're actually granted an option to kill Samara and recruit Morinth instead. And doing this is really fucked for several reasons. Morinth isn't exactly a bundle of joy and happiness. She mindfucks innocent people to death, and she finds a lot of sadistic pleasure in finding which victim she wants to inflict that pain on. Hell, if you decide to pursue it and decide to try and romance her, it ends about as well as you would expect.
I want you.
Do you really mean it? You'll be with me?
I will.
Come here, Shepard. Embrace eternity.
Unironically, she is so addicted to mindfucking that she doomed the universe. Yeah. She also has a very unfortunate fate waiting for her in Mass Effect 3 if you do choose to side with her. However, there's a few reasons in particular I want to ignore that option. Firstly, if Samara lives, she'll show up during a mission in 3 where she'll be extremely relevant, but this is also one of only 4 loyalty missions that you can just outright fail. I've already mentioned Zaid's mission, but you can just fail the hunt for Morinth if you're an absolute idiot like me and failed to lure her in.
That sounds exciting.
How about your family?
I don't have a family.
I think I'll go now.
Really? I thought I felt a connection.
I didn't feel any connection at all.
Oh, it was nice to meet you. Excuse me while I get a drink.
We failed. She was alerted and she got away.
I will not have a chance like this for another 100 years. How many people will die in the meantime?
So because of that, we're going to just go ahead and fail her loyalty mission. Then there is Thane and Tali, and I suppose I should mention the relationship trajectory real quick. In this playthrough we're going to be pursuing a relationship with Thane, and we'll have a huge talk about why during Mass Effect 3, as that's when I can really talk about our relationships in depth, but keep this in your mental handy-dandy notebook. Tali and Jack will also have to be explained later on, but let's go ahead and talk about the actual suicide mission and its execution. So luckily for us, killing specific party members is actually extremely simple. However, avoiding the deaths of a few characters in particular is a little bit more problematic. For example, let's take a look at the Biotic Specialist. If you choose anyone besides a loyal Jack, Samara, or Morinth, you're going to lose a party member. However, the member that you lose isn't random. It goes in a natural pecking order starting with Thane, then Jack, then Garrus, and so on and so forth. Of course, this is entirely avoidable by doing their loyalty mission, or just sacrificing a specific party member that we're okay with losing. But where this becomes a massive fucking issue is in the final check with Hold the Line. Hold the Line's kill order, before loyalty, is Mordin, Tali, Kasumi, Jack, Miranda, Jacob, Garrus, Samara/Morinth, Legion, Thane, Zaid, then Grunt respectively. Now what you're going to notice is that this order is extremely loaded, with 3 of the party members we want to assure survive taking place in the first 4 slots. And what's even worse is that you need to average a specific point total in order to avoid casualties, and in order to do that we need to do loyalty missions, which are mostly off the table since their success usually results in a net positive. But that's not where the fun ends for us. No. 2 other factors we have to account for is that every party member has their own point attribute, with some being higher and some being lower than others. And if you don't do their loyalty mission, they're reduced by a point, which is really funny because that makes your point total really bad. So, yeah. And also, in case you're wondering, we can't avoid these deaths by taking any disloyal party members to the final boss, because if you do that, they are guaranteed to die. So, yeah, it's time to get min-maxy. I managed to find a calculator online to help with this, and no shit, it's taken me about an hour and a half of inputting seemingly arbitrary decisions in order to get a good result. So, unfortunately we need to do a few loyalty missions. Easily the most positive mission of the bunch is Tali's, which I think is borderline unavoidable. Since Mordin and Tali are at the bottom of Hold the Line, assuring both of their lives would require us to secure an absolutely absurd point average, which I just don't think is possible, seeing how both of them start off at an astounding 0 points. Other than that, though, we had to do things anyways to pursue a relationship, which does luckily help us out a pretty significant chunk. Jax is honestly deeply personal and admittedly kind of arbitrary on a grander scale. I'm not sure if this one was strictly required or not, but I did the mission anyways just to get a little bit closer to her before the events of Mass Effect 3. Then we went ahead and unlocked Mordin's loyalty, which definitely has the most room for mistakes. So when we locate a student and realize that he's helping the Krogans out of his own volition, not only are we going to let Mordin kill him by ignoring the interrupt option, but we're also going to let Mordin destroy the valuable data for a scenario that'll play out in Mass Effect 3. That outcome would play out either way if we didn't secure his loyalty, but it is much more abrupt and heartbreaking if we choose this option. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's not go to the suicide mission. The crew got abducted while we were out and about on a derelict Reaper, and if we choose to do a bunch of other missions before the suicide mission, they're all going to die. Well, realistically, they can all die if we just don't send an escort to guide them back to the Normandy, but still, not a good outcome. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and buy some fish, watch them drown, and find some pointless nonsense to do in the meantime. Although we're going to talk about this later on just to keep video flow intact. Now on to the suicide mission. Firstly, I did go ahead and get all the required upgrades. If the Normandy's armor isn't upgraded, Jack dies. If the Normandy cannons aren't upgraded, Thane will die. And there is a slight element of control with the shields, but Kasumi, Tali, and Thane will all be absolutely critical for the mission. So that makes the approach fairly simple. Just upgrade everything and safely secure your crash landing. Good job. For the tech specialist, well, it just has to be Jacob. It's a suicide mission, and he volunteered. Just let him do his thing. For the biotic specialist, we went with Jack, which means we'll suffer no casualties during this segment, since she's not only loyal, but she's also immensely talented. Jack? Jack? Hello? What barrier? We made it through. I don't know what, oh. Well, that's okay, I never wanted to do a suicide mission anyways. Alright, well, I managed to get past that, and we're going to go ahead and take Garrus and Mordin to us to the final... Garrus? Buddy? Are you alright? You're looking a little bit, not there today, if you catch my drift. Garrus? Oh, Garrus, I'm all for Turian rights, but transforming into a Krogan and turning the other squad mate into a Turian just seems a little bit oh, wait, shit, sorry. Garrus is a dead name. My sincerest apologies. Undefined Shepherd True. I'll keep that in mind for the rest of your mission, and I'm glad you came out as transracial during our fight. Wait, what? Why am I a Krogan now? Look, we're on a suicide mission. I don't think we have time to debate this. Undefined Shepherd True, I know you don't have any abilities, but can you... Did you just fucking kill Mordin? What? Can you get up, bud? We're on a mission here. We don't have enough time to take a power nap on the floor. Alright, Undefined Shepherd True, I'm heading to fucking Denny's with Thane. Going to order a Grand Slam and get some drink. Damn it, Jack, I'm not talking to you! Look, I knew we weren't all going to make it out alive, but I didn't think this would be how it would end. I have absolutely no fucking clue what happened, but it seems like BioWare is throwing everything they got in order to make sure I can't beat the suicide mission. So let's talk about Hold the Line. For Hold the Line in particular, since we secured specific party members' loyalties, our casualties aren't going to be Mordin and Tali, but rather Kasumi and Miranda are going to be up first since we never did their exclusive mission. Also, in regards for Undefined Shepherd True, since we never secured their loyalty, they're unfortunately going to perish when we destroy the Human Reaper. However, Mordin will survive, so that's why we're going to be taking him with us. So in total, after all is said and done, Grunt is still locked away in the mommy tube, we went ahead and sold Legion for table scraps, Jacob died doing what Jacob does best, all of the Normandy's crew, barring Joker, is either dead or MIA. Zaid didn't have a fantastic time trying to guide a second fire team. Undefined Shepherd True got no-scoped by Human Reaper. Kasumi and Miranda perished attempting to hold the line, but Thane, Jack, Samara, Tally, and Morden all survived. We did it, Reddit. We saved the galaxy. But I do want to go ahead and mention one last thing before the DLC. It is actually possible to just outright fail this mission if you manage to defeat the final boss with less than 2 party members surviving the entire mission. It's genuinely pretty damn hard to get this outcome, as you essentially have to skip out on almost every loyalty mission, skip out on the 3 most vital Normandy upgrades, assure you pick the wrong companions for every option, and possibly skip out on recruiting certain companions altogether. But after all is said and done, Shepard doesn't make it out alive, and only Joker sees the end of the mission, and in a very bittersweet way, it's actually really admirable that Joker rises up to the challenge in this ending. But unfortunately, the Biotic God and Blasto won't be joining Joker for Mass Effect 3, as you're unfortunately not able to continue on to the game if this does occur. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with our 6 survivors. Well, 7 if you consider Joker, and maybe even 8 if you want to count Edie, but still. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and transition into the 2 most interesting DLCs. Project Overlord and Arrival. Project Overlord is a DLC where we casually stroll on into some Cerberus experiment and research compounds with the goal of creating a virtual intelligence that can control the Geth. Well, sure enough, they eventually got it to work, but the VI went rogue and it overall just hasn't been a great time for the scientists. So eventually, after some comic antics, you'll find out what the VI truly is. The lead scientist here, Gavin, had an autistic brother named David who is an incredible mathematical savant with photographic memory and computer-like calculation abilities. And because of that, due to sci-fi bullshit, David was actually able to talk with the Geth in some capacity. But eventually Cerberus reported in and threatened that the project was going to be shut down if prominent results weren't displayed soon. So Gavin forcefully integrated David into the VI program in a casual gaming setup that looks like this. Yeah, there's some really good reasons why the VI went rampant and caused so much havoc. But, honestly, this is just above my pay grade. As I already said, Shepard can hardly count. Do you think she knows what it's like to be a good counselor or therapist? Brains are things that splatter on walls when I go pew pew or whoosh. I don't understand how they work, and quite frankly, I have no desire to learn. So, you seem like a trustworthy brother. Keep him. I don't care. I have more important things to do. Like Thane. Also, I'm going to talk about the results of doing this real quick, since we won't actually see David or Gavin in Mass Effect 3. You can find Gavin and David in 2 missions where Cerberus is attacking a specific location. David is in Grissom Academy, and Gavin is in a facility on Gelix. I did lead you on though by mentioning David. If you free him, he'll be there, but if you let Gavin keep him, he's ultimately going to kill his brother as an act of mercy, as he no longer responded to any stimuli whatsoever shortly afterwards. And the funniest part is if you do this mission, make a few specific choices in Mass Effect 3 we'll be talking about later, and report to Gavin afterwards, He'll kill himself after he realized he tortured and killed his disabled brother, with absolutely no justification for the suffering that he inflicted. Yeah, it's not particularly great. Anyways, after that, we have to throw ourselves out of the airlock and find Hackett. Alrighty, bud, tell me what I need to do.
Just this morning I received word that the Batarians found evidence of an imminent Reaper invasion. And we want war with the Batarians. I need you to infiltrate the entire Batarian system. And we want blood. Explode the mass relay, and there's 300,000 Batarians in that system. All dead.
Got it.
Yeah, so I mentioned it earlier, but the premise of this DLC is pretty simple. The Reapers are arriving to this system, and they plan to utilize the mass relay here to travel across the entire galaxy and begin their annihilation of all life as we know it. A team of scientists came together and all arrived to the same conclusion that this isn't particularly PogChamp. So they started a project to destroy the mass relay, which will delay the Reaper's advance for potentially months. Unfortunately though, this will essentially kill off the entire system, which is home to 300,000 Batarians. Oh, that's it? Look, I had a segment here where I wanted to make a joke more elaborate than Batarians bad give up votes Big Chungus, but I kind of just can't. I know the Batarians you see in the game aren't representative of the entire species because of their paranoid government, but I'm just saying that I wouldn't necessarily be against the Solarians figuring out a Batarian xenophage, but, you know, maybe skip the whole fertility thing and get to the fun part. Maybe I am a bad person. Whatever. Let me take this opportunity to start merging Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 2's DLC is very much formed around the game, instead of the DLC inserting itself into the game. The easiest comparison I can draw here is Kasumi and Javik. Here's some footage of me deciding to talk to Javik after a difficult mission.
Looks familiar.
I've been studying this ship, its crew. There was a Normandy before this one. You died in an attack.
Something like that.
But then you were resurrected to fight the Reapers.
Maybe you and I have a thing or two in common.
But you have something else. The reasons you fight are still alive. The friendships of the people around you. And more. You and the human female are joined.
You see that?
I know. Your family are. Is this why you still living for their affection?
Without that affection, all I have in my life is death. That's not enough.
Yes.
What about you? I respect your reasons for being here, but doing this thing more, Jack. What's in here?
He's called the Echo Shard. Passed from soldier to soldier. Prothean to Prothean. Each has their memory streets.
Wait, what about
Women focus. Talk to me.
you read? I think it's a whole slide.
And alternatively, here's me deciding to talk to Kasumi just before her death.
Liara T'Soni's got quite a reputation. I've done business with her people before. I can see why Jack is the way she is. I don't like it, but I get it.
I know Javik was originally supposed to be in the base game until EA did EA things, and I am not going to defend that. But as a companion, I would much rather take Javik over Zaid or Kasumi any day of the week. And this exact thing is also seen in the Arrival DLC, where I honestly just want to go ahead and admit that it's practically canon. If you do Arrival and boot up Mass Effect 3, you're stuck on Earth because you're working with Cerberus, an infamous terrorist organization that nobody likes, destroyed a mass relay in an attempt to thwart the plans of a race that is being falsely labeled as propaganda, and directly killed 300,000 Batarians by hijacking a science facility, killed everybody that stood in your way, and because of that, you may have very well sparked a potential Batarian versus human war. As Shepard, it sucks because you know the Reapers are a galaxy-spanning threat, and it was ultimately a justifiable action. But it also makes perfect sense since the politicians would rather bury their heads in the sand and ignore the Reaper threat until it's inevitably too late. And you also happen to be a pretty convenient scapegoat in avoiding a potential war. When you boot up Mass Effect 3 without doing the Arrival DLC, you're just stuck on Earth because you worked with Cerberus. It's just really, really weak. And this is ultimately a much longer way of saying that we did the DLC, since it results in us destroying a mass relay, killing a bunch of Batarians, and an entire research facility for no reason. From an entirely meta standpoint, sure, but you know what I mean. Anyways, with that out of the way, it's Mass Effect 3 time. And with all of our dominoes set up, comic antics are going to ensue. So the pacing of this entire game is going to be pretty weird. We're going to go ahead and skip all the way over to the very end of Mars where we confront our boy Tim. The only thing to note in this section is that we picked a Paragon option, despite the fact that we have definitely not been a Paragon. Afterwards though, we're going to go to Huerta Memorial Hospital as Kaidan got absolutely fucked by a thick robot and he's currently just laying about. I'm breaking continuity a lot in this segment, like I said, but firstly, we're not going to be visiting Kaidan. Visiting Kaidan implies we went to personally check up on him while the entire galaxy is at risk, and that just seems a little bit too emotional for our hollow husk of a shepherd. But secondly, there's a really touching conversation you can listen to where an Asari huntress was on a human planet and during her visit to a local farm, the Reapers began their attack and began killing and collecting everyone to transform them into husks. Before all that carnage though, she began talking with a teenage girl named Hillary that she seemingly befriended. But unfortunately due to the Reaper attack, after days of surviving and fending off enemy forces, the Asari had to eventually kill Hillary since she broke her arm and began crying and screaming while the two were hiding from the Reaper threat. This led to the Asari developing crippling PTSD, being paranoid around humans, which, I mean, we're not really helping out with, and currently she's continuously asking for a weapon for seemingly no reason. And for a depressing fact here, Hillary is confirmed to be Joker's little sister, which he desperately hopes is alive since he knew the planet was attacked, but he has no information on whether or not his family survived. Now I will say when compared to other things that I've excluded from the video, this is a relatively minor incident. However, I decided to bring it up because the way you hear this entire story is really fucking stupid. You can't just hear the entire conversation in one sitting, which, by the way, is really long. You have to hear a segment, go to the elevator, travel to a different floor, return back to the hospital, go there again, hear another segment, and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. And because of that really baffling decision, not a whole lot of people even know this is a thing. However, don't you worry, this has a happy ending, as us being a shepherd can use our Spectre status to authorize her to carry a weapon, which very quickly leads to her committing suicide in the hospital and lowering morale across the already shaken board. Yeah. Oh, but don't you worry, our husband is here. And now I get to talk about relationships. So I mentioned I want femship for our relationships, and we finally get to talk about why. So in Mass Effect 1, our relationship trajectory is essentially the same regardless of gender. For Mass Effect 2 though, there's actually quite a few good options. Jack and Tali are both going to be depressing for reasons I'm going to get into soon, and you can even lock yourself out of any potential relationship with Jack if you casually bang during your first conversations. And Samara pushes you away repeatedly until she literally retreats into another section of the ship and only requests please after any attempt to try and talk to her. Mourn literally kills you, and you can get Kelly Chambers to commit suicide in Mass Effect 3 if you pursue a relationship with her in Mass Effect 2. However, the big problem between genders actually arises in Mass Effect 3. As depressing as Jack and Tally's fates are going to be, it's ultimately going to be the same regardless of relationship or personal status. Miranda, as I already mentioned, is going to be dead. Morinth isn't an option since Samara is alive. Kelly Chambers died alongside Normandy's crew, and Ashley wouldn't be around by the time we want to pursue a relationship. For relationships only available in 3, Diana is literally who fucking cares. Samara requires us to do the Citadel DLC, which we will not be doing. Kaidan would be available to male shep in 3, but you won't get the option to pursue that since the optimal route would require him to die on Virmire. And Steve can die near the end of the game if you never talk to him, which obviously means we can't pursue a relationship with him. At the end of the day, the only real option is Liara, but not only is that available to both Shepards, but it's overall just not exciting. The reason we went FemShep isn't because the relationships offered are necessarily worse, but because the options in 3 for male Shep are incredibly lackluster. However, I did deliberately choose Thane because I think it's by far the most distressing relationship in 3. So there's 2 potential paths. Either we just chill out by Thane and never talk to him, securing a worst possible outcome later on, or we talk to him and secure a slightly better but personally devastating outcome very soon. We'll get there when the time comes, but just to prove a point, I'll go ahead and talk to the guy. So with that very oddly specific tangent over with, our next real choice is Grissom Academy. I already mentioned that Cerberus wants to attack it, but one thing I didn't mention was that Jack is going to be there if she survives Mass Effect 2. So guess what? We're actually not going to Grissom Academy. She's going to try and defend her students from Cerberus and fail, but she's not going to die. We're going to get to that later. Also, we went ahead and recruited Javik. Truthfully, Javik is doomed to perish no matter what choices we make. Either Cerberus is going to attempt and fail to bring him back to life, his life pod is going to run out of power, which, kills him, or he's going to die by the final mission. However, I think his death is sadder if we bring him on board with Normandy and get to know him on a more personal level. And on a vaguely related note, I don't know if there's any specific requirements, but when he asks if you're willing to do anything to achieve success, he doesn't call me a liar or bust out the iconic line.
Because you still have hope that this war will end with your honor intact.
I do.
Stand in the ashes of 1 trillion dead souls and ask the ghosts if honor matters. This silence is your answer.
He actually goes ahead and says this instead.
Lies are easy to detect, but you seem to be telling the truth, Commander. For now.
And honestly, that's really freaking cool. I remember my first playthrough, I was wondering if he would still say that you're a liar if you played a renegade character that would truly do anything to achieve victory. And the fact it's even a possibility is really sick. And I tried to look it up online to see if I could find any criteria or requirements for this, but the only thing I found was other players confirming that they heard this line. I know it's entirely tangential, but I just think it's really neat. I love Javik. But back to the main story, it's politics time. Everybody is too busy worrying about their homeworld to send out troops to protect other races' homeworlds, so it's time to win some favor. We go to Turian land, do some comic antics there, and after seeing the battle firsthand, we realize we need the Krogans to win the war. And the Krogans will only join our cause if we give them a cure to the genophage. Luckily for us, there's a planet on the Solarian homeworld which has information on experiments regarding the possibility of fertile Krogans. However, there's a little bit of a complication. The fertile female was in Malin's experiment group, and Malin isn't exactly alive anymore. And neither is his research. Wrex is not particularly happy about that.
What are you talking about?
I found out you had access to Malin's data and destroyed it.
What does it matter? The commander is helping you now.
But why? These females are my people's best and last hope of curing the genophage. Whose side are you on, Shepard?
The Krogan weren't ready for a cure.
And now that you need us to fight the Reapers, we are. You're using us just like the Solarians, Shepard.
So, yeah, that surely won't be an issue later on. Also, you can find Commander Kirahi here, but he's also not exactly alive anymore, so he's replaced with another goon. Mordin is here though, and that's rather fun. I love Mordin. But whoopsie-doopsie, it's Cerberus time, whoa! Oh god, I hate Cerberus in this game. Also, we're just a massive asshole to Eve. And you can definitely tell that she's not exactly fond of the political situation that she's found herself in the middle of. But after successfully fighting off Cerberus on the easiest difficulty because I wanted to see how OP I was on narrative, she's free and now we have to go to Tuchanka in order to cure the genophage and secure Krogan support. Although most side missions in this game offer a net gain over a net loss, or if a net loss is possible, you usually have to avoid the mission altogether, a la Grissom Academy, Wrex's actually has a negative outcome available. So due to us killing the last Rachni Queen in Mass Effect 1, and never waking Grunt up in Mass Effect 2, this mission is drastically changed. Firstly, the Rachni Queen you can find here isn't the one you spared since she's, dead. But rather, she's a fabricant created by the Reapers who offers a much more shaky alliance.
A monster shaped to make hollow children. Empty children that obey.
The Reapers have created a false queen.
Children know I am free. Cannot hear me. Yes, I would fight the machines. They have made us slaves. I hear the children. They are lost in vain. The children will destroy us. All of us.
Commander, there's a lot of movement out here.
Copy that, Dag. Is there any hope for your children?
No. No. They only scream. We all suffer. If I create new children, maybe they could listen.
Just kill them all. Put them out of their misery.
Children, come. Release me. I will destroy the machines. Release me.
Commander, we got hostiles. If we stay here, Aralakh Company dies.
Change of plans. Aralakh Company buys her time to escape. Dag, get back here and lead us out.
Commander, I'm leaving my team and falling back.
Commander?
That's an order. She's too valuable an asset to lose.
Secondly, since Grunt is not only disloyal, but literally just stuck in the Tube Mother, he won't be showing up in this mission. So his replacement in this mission, Dag, will die when we offer an alliance to the subjugate Rachni. In total, this kills off Aralakh Company, one of Urnot's very best squadrons full of the strongest Krogan from Tuchanka, But this also leads to the enslaved Rachni Queen eventually betraying us and attacking us from within, which isn't particularly swell. As for the other mission available, for the Primarch, Cerberus rediscovered a bomb on Tuchanka that the Turians placed there after the events of the Krogan Rebellion. However, we don't know that yet. As of right now, all we know is that there's a Turian squad landed on Tuchanka, and they're not doing particularly great. So we're going to go ahead and land over there and help out in the best way we know how. We're going to go ahead and sit down in the corner, maybe enjoy a nice cup of coffee, and slowly watch as the giant enemy harvester slowly whittles away a Turian squad as we offer absolutely no solace to their position.
Feels terrible that we couldn't save those men.
It's legitimately kind of hard to do this because your companions get aggroed onto the harvester extremely easily. So I just sat in the corner and spammed my Q and D key until the cows came home, and it worked out. But by the time we reach the Turians though, they'll offer an invitation to help them investigate the bomb. And if we refuse to do so, the bomb will detonate a few missions later and deal catastrophic damage to the Krogan, and even kill Eve if she's still alive by that point. Of course we're going to do this mission later, as you actually aren't timed on the bomb mission until you do this initial mission, so you can kind of just do it whenever. Honestly though, one thing I do genuinely love about this playthrough is that Cerberus goes from a lumbering wannabe terrorist group that seems to do absolutely nothing but be a minor inconvenience to a genuinely terrifying organization that seems to be anywhere and everywhere that legitimately succeeds in most of their endeavors. I mean, it's kind of a testament to Mass Effect 3's writing that you can only get this feeling when you're actively playing through the series as terribly as possible, but I'm not here to beat a dead horse. I'm also not here to kill the horse and commit necrophilia. I'm just going to watch the dead horse from a nice safe distance and not catch any diseases that horses get. Are there any horse-bred diseases to humans? Look, I'm not exactly a disease guy, so if you know, feel free to share it, cause I'm interested. BTD6 still hasn't released a decomposing horse tower, and I'm here for it. Anyways, after that, we go back to Tuchanka, or rather, we just move around Tuchanka. Mass Effect 3 does Mass Effect 3 things. We summon the Thresher Maw to one-shot the Reaper Destroyer, and we enter the Shroud with Mordin. Oh, wait, shit, reverse, I never even mentioned the Solarian Dalatras. Yeah, before this mission started, she gave us an offer. If we sabotage the Krogan genophage cure, we'll receive the full support of the Solarian fleets back on Earth. However, the repercussions here actually have a ton of variables. The three biggest deciding factors is whether or not Mordin is alive or not, whether or not Eve will die or is already dead, and whether or not Wrex or Reeve is the leader of Clan Urdnot. But at least for now, our choice is essentially locked in. Wrex is still around, Mordin is still around, we sacked off Malin's data, which unfortunately means that Eve is going to perish. And that's really bad, as she was the Krogan's best chance for peace and prosperity. And don't get me wrong, Wrex is a fantastic leader and would not repeat the same mistakes that his ancestors did. But only Eve could be that shining beacon of hope and prosperity to the Krogan. And with that in mind, it's going to make this next scene so much worse.
Mordin, is the cure ready?
Yes, loaded for dispersal in 2 minutes. But Eve, dead.
What happened?
Stress sampling, too intense. Too much trauma. Wanted to stop. She refused. Her decision.
A lot of people died today, Mordin. There's nothing we can do.
Female was stabilizing force for Krogan. Would have helped Wrex rally more clans in support. Control room at top of Shroud Tower. Must take elevator up.
You're going up there?
Yes, readings at lab suggest temperature malfunction. Could affect cure viability. Need to adjust settings manually.
It's too dangerous, Morton. We need to get out of here.
No, temperature variance could destroy cure. Time running out. Have to go up.
Morton! You're not going up.
Not concerned for my safety. Concerned I might discover something. Sabotage? But whose? Ah. Why, Shepard? That desperate for Salarian aid? Or that afraid of Krogan?
Every time we've talked about this before, you've defended the genophage. Hell, you destroyed Malin's data. How can you change your mind now?
I made a mistake! Focused on big picture. Big picture made of little pictures. Too many variables. Can't hide behind statistics. Can't ignore new data. My responsibility. Need to go. Running out of time.
Morton, walk away.
Can't do that, Shepard.
I don't have a choice here. Walk away or I will fire.
Not your decision. Not your work. Not your cure. Had to be me. Someone else might have gotten it wrong. No time to argue. Cure dispersal imminent. Must counteract sabotage. Stop me if you must. No. Not ready.
Warning, temperature malfunction detected. Warning, dispersal commencing.
In life, this Krogan faced our greatest enemy with rare valor. In death, she has proven a savior to her people. May her courage fan the flames of hope for the future. She is now the true mother of T'Changa. She was everything I want the Krogan to be. I hope we follow her example.
I'm sorry for her loss. You can never know who'll survive war and who won't.
Unless you have a hand in it. Malin's research might have saved her.
We'll never know.
I won't hold a grudge, Shepard. You've proven you're still a friend to the Krogan. Too bad about Mordin, though.
I don't have a funny transition out of this one. I don't like this scene. It really hurts. But, after that, it's confirmed that Grissom Academy fell to Cerberus, and they also begin their assault to overthrow and control the Citadel. So I mentioned way back during Surkesh, the oh-so-iconic planet in the Solarian homeworld. that Kirhi wouldn't be show up. You know what, I don't even have the heart to edit that one out. Kirhi wouldn't be showing up on the Solarian homeworld, and that also affects this mission. So, midway during the mission, the Solarian Counselor is in danger, and in order to assure your survival, you need to either I'm going the fuck to bed. The Solarian Counselor is in danger, and in order to assure her survival, you need to either keep Thane alive in Mass Effect 2, and talk to him in Huerta Memorial Hospital, or alternatively, if Thane is dead or you never talk to him, you need to keep Kirhi alive by assisting his team during Virmire in Mass Effect 1. As we talked about earlier, we did talk to Thane, and hence the Solarian Counselor will be saved. And although this is actually a decent outcome, I'm showing this off because I think we get to witness one of the most unintentionally depressing scenes in the entire series. And honestly, this scene is always just bad. And it's even worse if Thane is your hubby. Nobody does a fucking thing to help the terminally ill Drell fight the Weeaboo, and he dies an ultimately preventable death. Well, he's terminally ill, but you know what I mean. After Thane starts bleeding out, we do some elevator nonsense and confront Udina and Kaidan. Of course, Udina is still one of the prime culprits of this attack happening, so we have to kill him off. However, Kaidan is in the way of that happening, and although our reputation is actually high enough to convince him to stand down, we're not going to be doing that.
Shepard. I'm not telling you again.
Damn it, Kaidan.
Counselor, get the door.
What were you thinking?
I was doing my duty.
You stood up for the wrong man.
Better than killing the wrong man.
And now we finally get to the scene that makes this entire thing incredibly awful. So, Thane gave his life to protect us in the Solarian Counselor, and we get this really heartfelt scene with him.
Sia, I'm afraid I've picked a bad time to leave.
You couldn't disappoint me, Thane. Not even now.
Such pleasant things from your lips. Excuse me. Breathing is difficult. Sia, it will be soon. I need to know if the Counselor survived.
Yes, Father. 3 are alive thanks to you and Shepard. Udina, he instigated it. He is dead.
There's something I must do before it gets worse. I must... Liara, mistress of inscrutable depths, I ask forgiveness. Liara, whose waves wear down stone and sand.
Liara, wash the sins from this one, and set him on the distant shore of the infinite spirit.
Goliath, you speak as the priests do. You have been spending time with them.
I brought a prayer book. Commander, would you care to join me? Liara, this one's heart is pure, but beset by wickedness and contention.
Guide this one to where the traveler never tires. The lover never leaves.
The hungry never starve. Guide this one, Kalahira, and she will be a companion to you as she was to me. Why did the last verse say she?
The prayer was not for him, Commander. He has already asked forgiveness for the lives he has taken. His wish was for you.
That's really sweet, right? Wrong. Guess what, fuckaroo? I'm cheating on him! Like 15 seconds before heading to the hospital, I was in the shower with my navigation specialist grabbing her sensually and setting up our future relationship, and this entire scene is so much worse when you realize that all the while your husband is breathing his last final breaths in the hospital, praying for the only person he's grown to care for since his first love died, is actively cheating on him, and she only shows up afterwards just to say a casual goodbye before he's dead. Like, there's cheating. There's getting cheated on. There's letting your love interest die an ultimately preventable death. And then, there is cheating on your love interest who has only cared and loved you. A person who has lived a life of trauma and bloodshed that inadvertently led to their first love dying and going down a darker path. A person who remembers every slaughter, every kill, every traumatic event throughout their entire life in photorealistic detail. A person whose only real connection they felt in their life since their first love died was with you. And in his prayer, he hopes that someday you two will meet again, and he genuinely wishes you the best in life. All the while you're just standing there like, damn, this is kinda sad. Was the shower really worth it? And guess what? I guess it is, because we're going to pursue this relationship even further. I'm sorry, but this is fucking awful, and I think you can see why I went down this road. And do you know what makes it even worse? My feelings of guilt only deepened when I booted up the Mass Effect website trying to find some cute plushies or something, and immediately made direct eye contact with a Garrus and Tele body pillow, then scrolled down to see Thane on sale for a quarter of their value. Just like Shepard, I was too late to save Thane, or rather save on Thane. But goddammit, when he comes back, I'm gonna buy him. And this isn't a joke, I have a full body pillow that I bought because I have sleep apnea. Currently, it's in my favorite color of medical depression gray, but when he comes back, I'm gonna fucking buy him, and I'm gonna slot him in. This isn't a joke, this is a promise, and if I want to, I could algorithmically bait this saying, if this video gets 50 billion likes, I'll upload a video of me cuddling with him, but honestly, I'll do it for free. BioWare, please. You know where to reach out to me. God, it's not going to get any better, is it? Well, it's time to go to Rannoch and figure out what's going on with the Corians and the Geth. But first we have to disable a Geth Dreadnought, as the Reapers have given the Geth an upgrade to their code, which hasn't been particularly swell for our Corians who've been at war with them. Tali joins us for this mission though, and it's great talking to her again and hearing what she has to say. Especially since she's been promoted to an Admiral since Mass Effect 2. The same cannot be said for Legion though. Since we sold him in Mass Effect 2, we won't be seeing them in this mission as he's currently in Cerberus' hands. But here to guide us instead is a Geth VI who's based on the personality of Legion. Of course we haven't talked to Legion, so overall our temperament towards the Geth and this reconstruction isn't as positive as it should be. Although Geth do not build windows as it is a structural weakness for their ships, one thing I hear a lot about companions is that they're often a window to their race. You learn a lot about the Drell through Thane, you learn a lot about the Quarians through Tali, and you learn a lot about the Geth through Legion. If you choose to take the risk of activating them on the Normandy and take them along with you, you learn a lot more about the Geth, and it's genuinely fascinating. Legion is by far my favorite companion of the entire Mass Effect trilogy, and I promise this isn't just a gush about Legion. Okay, it kind of was, but the point I'm trying to get at here is that not activating Legion means we're lacking so much knowledge and, even to an extent, acceptance of what the Geth are. And although the Geth VI reconstruction tries its best to accommodate us, the mood is just going to be extremely hostile and suspicious around them. Either way, we decide to bring them along for our misadventures. Admiral Garrus begins to open fire on the Dreadnought even while we're still inside of the ship. We punch him because he's a fucking idiot and legitimately the worst. Like, seriously, I wish there was an option to kill Garrus specifically because I would genuinely take it. Then we can enter the Geth consensus to disable their fighter squadrons, or alternatively rescue Admiral Chorus, who was forced to crash land onto the surface of Rannoch. Well, we're actually going to put a post-it note on that for now, as Liara gave us some information from Asari High Command investigating an Ardat Yakshi monastery. Remember Morinth? Yeah, she's an Ardat Yakshi. They aren't looked upon favorably in Asari culture, surprisingly, so they're usually contained in monasteries to contain their innate desire to mindfuck people to death, and to channel some of their abilities towards more positive endeavors. We decided to head there for a mission, and rather unsurprisingly enough, Samara shows up as she wants to find her other two daughters here. Throughout the mission though, we hear this absolutely terrifying ambient noise.
That sound. There's more than one out there.
And eventually we confront the source. The Reapers are capturing Ardat Yakshi to transform them into Banshees. These lovely little fellas, which I just fucking adore because when it comes to video game audio, one of my favorite things to hear and see the process of engineering is just crafting a really fucked up screech or scream. Whether it comes from a monster, or a humanoid, or a creature, I don't know, it's just really neat. If I had to bring up an example off the top of my head, something like the Zerg from StarCraft, where you can just hear these absolutely alien and terrifying screeches. It's just really cool. I don't know, and Mass Effect 3 does it fantastically too, where you can hear a Banshee or a Harvester and go, oh shit, it's that time again, isn't it? I really like them. Anyways, back onto the mission. I'm going to be honest, I'm just going to skip the entire mission summary, as I think just showing you the cutscene at the very end tells you everything you need to know.
There wasn't even time to say goodbye.
Few can break the Reaper's hold. Rila's will was extraordinary, as was her love for you.
We left her to die.
Rila made her choice, and it has reminded me of what is truly important. Why I swore I'd lay down my life.
What is that?
Valere. The code demands an Ardat Yakshi cannot live outside a monastery that no longer exists.
What are you doing?
I'm sorry, Shepard. By the Justicar's code, there is only one way to save Valere.
Mother, no!
My daughters, you were all so much stronger than I believed.
Mother! Why would she do this after Rila saved our lives?
You did nothing to cause this, Valere. Samara made her choice.
She shouldn't have had to. My mother died because of our code. Because I'm an Ardak Yakshi. Please. Leave me with her.
You're an Ardat Yakshi, Valere. I can't risk you leaving this planet.
I have no plans to leave. And I'd never let the Reapers take me alive.
I can't take that chance.
What are you doing? Isn't losing my family enough?
Bring the shuttle. I want off this planet.
Getting your coordinates now, Commander.
Just follow the smoke.
Yeah, I think it should be pretty clear why we went ahead and spared Samara. Also, in case you're curious about Morinth, if you choose to pursue her and obtain her in Mass Effect 2, you'll actually find her in Mass Effect 3 as an enemy Banshee on Earth. However, if she's still alive because you didn't pursue her, whether you fail the loyalty mission or just don't do it altogether, she actually won't show up at all, and I think that's more of a gameplay thing rather than a lore thing. I'm just gonna bust out the Davey headcanon and claim that she's probably just elsewhere. Because it wouldn't exactly be the first time something like this has happened in Mass Effect 3. Anyways, back on Rannoch, we're going to go ahead and save the Admiral planetside by destroying the anti-air guns and escorting him. However, I was just kidding about saving the Admiral. If your Renegade or Paragon reputation isn't high enough, he'll sacrifice his life while urging you to free the civilians caught in the crossfire. And, oddly, unlike the Caden situation, my Renegade score isn't high enough, even though my chat wheel has been picking on bottoms more than an OnlyFans dominatrix. It's not exactly a bad thing, it's what we want, but I do find it kinda strange. Also, on a relevant note, one thing that becomes especially prevalent in Mass Effect 3 is not picking the magical red option whenever it appears, and instead, opting into letting things play out normally. It's something I've had to keep in mind for the entire series, but it definitely comes up the most in Mass Effect 3. I guess the very cold and deadly efficient manner of Renegade Shepard usually doesn't result in many issues when it comes to smaller confrontations, but in an us versus them galaxy-spanning conflict, it's a pretty well justified mentality, and just being neutral isn't really an option. Something something trillion dead souls, something something silence. Anyway, now we get to go to the Geth HQ to shut off the Reaper code. And at this point my Shepard is practically a god because Tech Explosion has been going burr the entire playthrough, but now, Tech Explosion really go burr. Okay, never mind. Also, you don't have to shoot your turret in this section, which I think is kind of funny. I'm not going to say it doesn't make sense, but I do think it's funny. Afterwards, though, we engage the Reaper Destroyer in what I can only describe as objectively the boss fight of all time, and upon its defeat, Tali and the Geth VI approach us and offer a predicament.
We did it. We killed a Reaper. Gila.
We can confirm that the Geth are no longer being directed by the old machines. We are free.
You did it, Shepard. The Geth fleet has stopped firing. They're completely vulnerable.
Shepard Commander, the Geth only acted in defense after the Creators attacked. Do we deserve death?
What are you suggesting?
Our upgrades. With the old machine dead, we could upload them to all Geth, without sacrificing their independence.
You want to upload the Reaper code? That would make the Geth as smart as when the Reaper was controlling them.
Yes, but with free will, each Geth unit would be a true intelligence. We would be alive, and we could help you.
Our fleet is already attacking. Uploading the code would destroy us. Shepard, you can't choose the Geth over my people.
Why not? Our fleet is massive. We can support Shepard's fight against the old machines. If the Creators no longer threaten us.
Upload the code to the Geth. Tally, call off the fleet if you can.
Uploading. 10%.
This is Admiral Talizora. All units, break off your attack.
Belay that order. Continue the attack.
20%.
I beg you, do not do this. Please.
Your people began this war. We will end it. 40%.
Sorry.
No.
Error. Copying code is insufficient. Direct personality dissemination required. Shepard Commander, our skepticism was misplaced. Thank you.
Denied. All ships, full barrage. We have multiple hull breaches. Raya's drive core is offline. All ships in range. Please assist. Please assist. Escape pods not responding. All hands prepare for impact.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there's a few issues here. Firstly, and most blatantly, rest in peace Tally and rest in peace Quarians, but secondly, there's a very subtle but extremely important distinction between the sacrifice of Legion and the Geth VI.
Legion, the answer to your question was yes.
I know, Tally. But thank you. Healers alive.
Notice that Legion refers to itself as I, while the VI says our.
Our skepticism was misplaced. Thank you.
This difference implies that while Legion was able to reach self-actualization and true consciousness, the Geth VI wasn't able to reach that point, and hence the Geth aren't at the same level of intelligence as expected. And trust me, it's only going to get worse. Also, remember way back during the Project Overlord shenanigans, and more specifically David Archer's appearance in Mass Effect 3, where I said a choice we would make later on would make him commit suicide? Yeah, well, I'm sure you put 2 and 2 together, but there's something really jank about that. If you destroy the Geth, David will kill himself. But oddly, if you destroy the Corians or even broker peace, that outcome can't play out. At least from my testing, which is really weird because the research is still totally invalidated since the Geth have free will. I mean, to be fair, you can still convince him to commit slip and slide regardless, and we still won't see him in this playthrough, but I feel like this is the 3rd or 4th time I've said this during Mass Effect 3. I'm not going to bother to verify that claim, in fact I'm going to lean into it more. Nothing boosts the algorithm quite like sheer arrogance, and I guess I was bound to have a Joker arc at some point, might as well get it started now. But with this, we're able to return to the Citadel, receive our next assignment, and...
Wrex.
Shepard.
Visitors are prohibited from bringing weapons into the...
What are you doing?
I know what you did.
We can provide you our very best scientists to build the Crucible, and the full support of our fleets. If I sabotage the cure, think about it, Commander. The choice is yours.
Where did you get that?
Morden wasn't my only source in STG. Or did you think I was as dumb as my brother, Reeve? What have you done?
We have a security breach at Bay D24. Code red.
The other Krogan aren't like you, Wrex. They live for war. I couldn't take that chance.
I should have known not to trust you. The war starts here. And before you die, I want you to know I'm calling off our support for Earth. If my people go extinct, so do yours!
Doesn't have to be this way, Wrex!
It should have been this way back on Vermeer, but I made the mistake of trusting you, believing you were my friend. I was a... Ah! Ah! I know what you did.
What the hell pissed him off?
I don't know. Just went crazy.
Yeah, and the worst part about all of this is that this is pretty much entirely a net loss, as the Solarian fleet is nowhere near as powerful as the full might of the Krogan. And god, I know it's a really tiny detail to comment on, but the war asset updates in this route are just brutal. Urdnot Wrex angrily ordered the Krogan to withdraw support from Shepard's forces. Tuchanka's clans have hunkered down on their homeworld, determined to defend themselves while watching the rest of the galaxy burn. Damn. Well, with that out of the way, we went ahead and reached our most important milestone yet. Every single squad member from the previous games, excluding Liara, is now deceased. God, I'm depressed. Seriously, look at the squad select screen, it's just so sad. So let's go ahead and hit up the Asari homeworld. The only two things to note here in particular are that we brought along Javik so Liara can casually have one of her race's religions tore down in a way that can only be replicated in an r/atheism user's wet dream. And when we talk to Tim before the oh-so-climactic and beloved boss battle against the oh-so-climactic and beloved character Kai Leng, we're going to go ahead and select the Renegade option. However, Kai Leng was too strong for us and defeated us in such a pure display of talent that the Mass Effect community unanimously adored, and consequently the morale across Normandy is pretty low. Fortunately though, the lady that we cucked Thane over attached a tracking device to a ship that seems to have landed on a planet. Specifically one named Horizon. Nothing about this planet seems particularly out of the ordinary. In fact, quite the contrary. The exact location is a facility named Sanctuary that provides, well, sanctuary for refugees across the galaxy. Seems a tad bit strange for a Cerberus agent to land there. Let's go ahead and check it out, and maybe we... Yeah, somehow, someway, things went a tad bit awry and we want answers. Well, at least I do. I don't know about yourself. Fortunately for us, there's an abundance of audio and videotapes lying about that will help out with just that. This refugee facility is, in fact, a trap, set up by Cerberus in order to capture test subjects. Unfortunately for them, but fortunately for my mental health, portals are not involved in these experiments. Instead, the experiments ran here are about the Reaper indoctrination method, with the intended goal of seeing if they can develop technology to control Reaper forces. Kind of like the Splinter group in the previous cycle that did just that and failed. Subtlety. It's not really Mass Effect 3's strong suit. Also, conveniently enough, Miranda's sister, Oriana, is here. Likewise, their father is here, and overall it's just not a particularly happy reunion. Especially so since Miranda is dead, Oriana seems to be getting chased by Kai Leng, as well as all the other less than helpful inhabitants, and their father is the one responsible for this, seeing as he's the lead scientist running these experiments. Overall, this episode of Home Improvement isn't particularly great, so we're going to intervene in the most Shepard way feasible. So back when I said a worst possible outcome is only possible if Miranda died, this is what I mean.
She's fine.
This ends here.
On the contrary, now that the Reapers are taken care of, we have a way out.
Let her go.
Please!
Don't struggle, child.
You don't need her. Let her go, and you can walk out of here.
She's all I've got left. Everything else is gone. Now put down the gun and step aside. Oriana has already been through enough.
Let me go!
Oriana!
No! Damn it.
If Miranda is alive to witness this encounter, no matter what happens, the father will die and Oriana will be saved. However, if Miranda is dead, you'll usually be subtly guided towards selecting an outcome that results in Oriana living.
If you spell subtly like this!
However, if you just let things play out with the mindset of an enlightened centrist that is so afraid of saying anything that they'd struggle to call the Germans during World War II anything less than misguided, Oriana will attempt to free herself, and in doing so, that results in both of them perishing. So that's another loose end dealt with. Actually, wait, I mentioned earlier that everyone's dead, but there's actually 2 party members left that are still MIA. What did Cerberus do to Legion? And what happened to Jack after Grissom Academy?
You really should have run when we took Grissom Academy, Subject Zero.
My name is Jack!
We're learning a great deal from those students you were training. Some of them may even survive.
I'm gonna tear you apart!
That's funny. I was just thinking the same thing.
More Cerberus forces en route.
They damn well better be. I barely broke a sweat. Damn it, we've got company!
I believe that was Jack.
It wasn't her. Not anymore. But one more thing that Cerberus will answer for.
Ah, yeah, that explains it. So yeah, we're at the Cerberus headquarters now, and just like Batarian's bad give up votes, I'm running out of creative ways to talk about Kai Leng. On a more interesting note, did you know that the Renegade interrupt that everyone loves is entirely pointless? Pretty much the exact same cutscene plays out regardless. Hell, Shepard even busts out the same "that was for Thane" line, even though she seemed rather indifferent to his circumstance during the moment. Virtue signaling like an absolute girlboss, to be sure. Anyways, I had a funny part of the script here because my game legitimately wouldn't load up the finale, and instead decided to bust out this on me. The reasoning for this happening, though, somehow makes it even better. The reason Earth didn't load is because I didn't disable the Take Earth Back mod, which I can't even be upset with. They definitely did take Earth back, just not in the way I would have preferred it. Anyways, shockingly, Earth is pretty much the same. Even with our war asset score having a pretty bad day, the scenario still plays out virtually the same with a few differences. 1. Rest in peace, Steve. I'm sure the 4 people who bothered to romance you are genuinely heartbroken right now. 2. Rest in peace this ship in particular. And 3. Things are a little bit more dire on the ground. I decided to bring along my iconic Jaja combo because I felt like they were the worst choices to die here. Not only does Javik have depression and want to commit suicide after the war because we convinced him to touch the memory shard that we brought on board, but he also doesn't even get the opportunity to stick around long enough to witness the end of the war. As for James, well, it just makes a lot more sense for him to die on his homeworld. I've also just been running with the Jaja team for most of this playthrough because there's just something about 3 party members with a damn laser beam mowing down anything in sight that just never gets old. Kind of literally in this case. Although I guess there's a case to be made for Javik being pretty damn old, but that's debatable. Anyways, on one last entirely tangential and unrelated note, the Geth Prime unit here is frankly an absolute unit, and I am genuinely upset that you don't get to talk to this guy if you resolve the war on Rannoch peacefully.
Have the Reapers tried contacting you since Rannoch?
They made an attempt. We rejected it. We will not relinquish sentience. There will be no more compromise with the old machines. Today, the Geth fight to secure our future, and once the war is over, we will help rebuild yours.
Anyways, where were we again? Oh. Yeah. So remember back on Mars and Thessia when we selected both Paragon and Renegade options with my boy Tim? So that'll come up again here. The Mass Effect Trilogy has this really bad tendency to really push you towards going full Renegade or full Paragon in playthroughs, and this is one of those decisions that really punishes you if you go for a Paragade run. So not only do you have to have an absolutely full 100% reputation bar to pass the final check, but you also need to remain consistent between your Renegade or Paragon options in all 3 of your encounters. This isn't strictly required to save Anderson, but it's definitely the best option in this scenario as it perfectly wraps up the elusive man's arc and avoids the execution altogether.
I tried, Shepard.
However, since we don't have access to this option, we can go ahead and use a Renegade interrupt to gun him down. But we're going to wait a little bit before doing that.
You're the one who failed. And you will die knowing you're one of my great disappointments.
Rest in peace, Dad. You really did make this galaxy proud. I'm just sorry to say that Shepard certainly isn't going to share that fate with you. So, the Crucible isn't firing. It's something on our end, and this little bastard is finally here. Now, throughout this entire video, you may have been thinking to yourself, Davey, why do all of this setup if you're just going to pick the reject ending? It's the same no matter what, so why bother with making this massive video? But that's where I'm going to pull a fast one on you. So, the reject ending is pretty sad. The galaxy fails, all advanced life is exterminated, Shepard is an idiot. But it still ends on a relatively optimistic note. Due to this cycle's sacrifices and their preservation of their knowledge towards whoever comes next, the next time the Reapers arrived to assimilate all life, they were actually able to defeat the Reapers and emerge victorious. So I finally get to talk about one choice I neglected to mention all the way back in Mass Effect 2. During that playthrough, I actually decided to blow up the Reaper instead of utilizing the specialized explosive like Tim suggests. Because of that and our less than ideal war asset score, we're now locked into exclusively one option: destroy. So as you probably know, the destroy ending wipes out all synthetic life in the galaxy, and with our current war asset score, it's actually going to wipe out the mass relays as well. It's also not just going to stop with synthetics, it actually wipes out a pretty significant chunk of natural life, including the very few stragglers aboard the Normandy that managed to survive against all odds. And without the mass relays, alongside the massive galactic damage inflicted, it's safe to say that this ending sets the survivors back immensely. It's even possible to suggest that it set them back forever. Losing the relays is absolutely devastating. And say what you will about the reject ending, but whatever civilization comes after us has a lot going for them. They have the mass relays, knowledge of the Reaper's arrival and how to beat them. They kind of have to be an advanced race, or races, for them to win against the Reapers, and generally it's safe to say that it's a lot better off than a bunch of primitives attempting to rebuild from the fumes of a galaxy obliterated from war. And on that note, when you look at how the races themselves are doing, the Quarians are dead, the Geth are dead, the Krogan are either dead outright or are doomed to extinction, the Protheans are dead, again, the Rachni are dead, and in the case of every other race, their homeworlds are either outright destroyed, or are just barely hanging on by a thread. And that's before the massive shockwave that's going to be hitting them. Whether it be the Turians, the Asari, Hanar, Elcor, Batarians, pretty much every race is doomed. And although you could say this is the case in every ending, the Leviathans have absolutely nothing stopping them from emerging and taking over whatever remains. Of course, we have no clue how powerful they truly are, especially as of release where we have absolutely no information on Mass Effect 4, but it's definitely going to be a lot easier to conquer a completely ravaged planet populated by scavengers than a planet that recovered from the war considerably with a solid defense. This is entirely speculatory, and I guess there's nothing saying that the civilization that rises after us can't be absolutely massive dickheads, but when you just compare the two endings side by side,
we knew the chances of victory was slim at best. But we are victorious. The Reapers are defeated. We deployed every strategy, fought every battle, sent every soldier and every hero to the brink. We held nothing back. Now, it's up to the survivors to rebuild, to start again. I only hope the lessons learned in this war don't die along with those of us who fought to win it.
I can't help but feel that this destroy is just the absolute worst ending. It would have been preferable if the Reapers just won, because although they lost, the victory was Pyrrhic, if you even want to call it a victory. The cycle was already nowhere close to Prothean technology, and even they couldn't figure out how to make a mass relay. And whenever one race eventually does, who knows if it'd even be worth it. This ending darkens the galaxy to such a threshold that a possible return to this level of civilization may be impossible. So our Shepherd entered this galaxy, and managed to leave it worse off than if the giant squid mechs turned everyone into gasoline. And I think that's an achievement.